Hello, welcome back. We are at part 2 for topic 2 relational database concept. I am Miss Hazlina. I'm going to teach you on database concept. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Okay, we have learned on previously in part 1. We have learned on the fundamental of a relational database. So next is terms that or keys, yeah, that you need to understand for you to continue on doing a relational database. So what is a key in a database, right? So a key is one or more columns of a relation that are used to identify rows. For example, you have a table. Okay, let's say you have a table. The name of the table is student. You have a student table. Okay, I just put student here. All right, you have few columns. Okay, and one of the columns is student ID. Okay, and then name. Okay. Alright, so this ID basically we can term as ID, or we can assign this ID as the key, yeah, as the key, because this ID uniquely identify each of the row. For example, student ID 100, 101. So 100 is Ali, okay, 101 is Abu, 102 is Amina, yeah, and so on and so forth. So you cannot have 100, 100, Alice. Okay, this violate the key concept. Key means one or more column of a relation that is used to identify the row. So we know that if ID 100, this is Ali. So ID 102 is actually Amina. ID 101 is actually Abu. Okay, right. Let's look at the type of key. All right. So uniqueness of keys. All right. So keys, some keys are unique, some keys are not unique. So unique key means data value is unique for each row. For example, just now ID row, yeah. ID row you can have 100 for Ali, 101 for Abu, 102 for Amina. You cannot have 100 for Alice. Okay, so consequently the key will uniquely identify a row. For example, you have a table on people, okay, people. So you have IC number, okay. So this ID number or passport number, okay, let's say passport number. So passport number is unique for every people, for every person. Okay, so in every row it is unique. So then we can say that ID is key. Non-unique data value may be shared among several rows. So for example, age. You have a column age. So age for a student who age 20 years old, there'll be more than one student age 20 years old. Okay, that is a non-unique. A composite key is a key that contains two or more attributes. Yeah, for a key to be unique, it must often become a composite key. So composite key, it means that let's say in a table, okay, let's say you have three columns, all right. So this value, this attributes and these attributes, this attribute and these attributes, both are keys. So that's what we call composite key. Okay. Right. To identify a composite key characteristic. To identify a family member, you need to know the family ID, a first name, and a suffix. Alright. So composite key is family ID, first name, suffix. Means that you need all of this value, right, for you to identify who is the family member. You need to know what is the family ID, what is the first name, suffix. That's all you know. Okay. Candidate key is called candidate because it is candidate to become the primary key. Okay, you will learn this in probably in chapter 4 or chapter 5 on about normalization process. Okay, in one table, you can have more than primary key, more than key, right? But upon the designing process, later sometimes you will notice that okay, this key is not needed, or is not necessary, or is not relevant, so take out this as the key. So that is what candidate key means. Candidate key means A and B is a candidate. After some time, when you go through a normalization process, then you know that, okay, B is not the key. So before that, it is called a candidate key. A primary key, most important that I need you to understand what is the meaning of primary key, right? So primary key is the main key for a relation. Remember, relation is a table. So in every table, you have to have one primary key, or you can have two primary key depending on the scenario. Okay, so if you know the value of the primary key, you will be able to uniquely identify single row. So this is example of the ID just now. So the ID, you assign it as the primary key. So you can say that ID uniquely identify the rows. Surrogate key is unique, okay, numeric, that is added to a relation to serve as the primary key. So it means that you can have more than one key, not candidate key, not candidate key, more than one key, which we call surrogate key. Surrogate key values have no meaning to users and are usually hidden on forms and queries and so on. Not that commonly used, because we often use one primary key is enough, or two primary key. Okay. If the family member primary key is family ID, first name and suffix just now, it will be easier to append and use a surrogate key of a family member ID, a new ID that explain all of these three ID. Okay, that's what surrogate key means. Relationship between tables. A table may be related to other table. Okay, a table may be related to other tables. For example, employee works for department. So you can determine one table employee, one table department. So they has the relationship. What is the relationship? Employee works in a department. So this is what it meant by relationship between tables. Or example, manager controls a project. So one table name manager, one table name project. How are their relationship is? A manager controls a project. Foreign key, second most important key or important attributes that you have to understand. Okay, so to preserve the relationship, when you look at just now, employee, okay, employee, this is table, this is entity, so it is drawn in rectangle. Okay, this is relationship shape, which is diamond. Okay, works, the name of the relationship, works in a department. Okay, another entity, okay, or another relation. Okay, department. All right, so every entity or every table have to have primary key. Okay, so let's say this is primary key 1 for employee. So let's say you have primary PK2, called PK, a primary key 2 for department. Okay, now a foreign key is a primary key from one table placed in another table. In simple said, okay, a foreign key has to be created when you have a relation, a set of relation. What is a set of relation? A set of relation means, Allah Akbar. A set of relation means you have one entity linked with one entity. Okay? Okay, so let me write it again. Sorry. Right. So a foreign key is a key that you create in one pair of relationship, and it is a primary key. So let's say you want to set a foreign key here, you should be taking PK2, primary K2, from the other table that it has the relationship is to be parked or to be assigned under this table employee. Okay, the key is called a foreign in the table that is received. So we can say that primary key 2 here is actually belongs to department. Okay, at the moment we also place a foreign key, which is primary key 2 in employee. So we can say that it is a foreign in another table. All right, so for example, For example, between these two tables. So you have table project, you have table manager. So project ID is the primary key, means that this project ID can determine all the rows of the project, can determine project name, project ID, can determine manager, who's the manager. Here in table manager, manager ID is the primary key, okay, which means that manager ID can determine what is the manager name, okay. All right, so that is the primary key, right? So now you can see that there's also manager ID, mgr ID in table project, right? So you can know that, and manager ID is actually a primary key in table manager, and now it is residing in another table that they have the relationship with. So we know that this is manager ID in table project is actually the foreign key. Okay, the foreign key for this pair of relationship. So every pair, when I say pair, every two entities or every two tables, you have to create one foreign key. Every pair that has a link together, you have to create a foreign key. Alright, example 2. In table department, department ID is primary key for table department. Employee ID is the primary key for table employee. Alright, so you can see that department ID here. So obviously, department ID which actually belongs to department and now is residing in employee. So you know that department ID is actually the foreign key for this relationship. Okay, so the foreign key, yeah. Okay, so this is the primary key, and you know that they are linked together between employee and department through a foreign key that link this foreign key to the primary key from the other table. Okay. Okay, another integrity constraint. Yeah? Integrity constraint, we call that referential integrity. Referential integrity states that every value of a foreign key must match a value of the existing primary key. So you know that PK actually link with FK. So means that the data for this PK and the data for this FK must be the same. So PK equals to FK. So the data must be the same. So example, if employee ID is 4 in table employee, so department ID and has a department ID of 7, which is the foreign key. So you should know that the primary key, which is department ID in department, must exist first in department, which is the data is 7. Another perspective, all right, the value of foreign key employee ID in the equipment must exist the values in the primary key in the parent table. So let's say we have two table, yeah, employee, all right, employee and department. Okay, so we have here employee ID and we have here department ID. Department ID. So department ID is the PK, employee ID is the PK. So like I said just now, when you have a relationship, you have to create a foreign key. So let's say we are putting department ID in employee here. So you have to put the foreign key, which is the primary key from the other table. So department ID here. So means that data for department ID in this table must exist first before you can insert data for department ID in table employee. Null value means no data was entered, not zero. Zero means there's still data. Okay, let's say you have a table. Okay, so 0, this is still a value. Okay, right? So empty, this is empty, then this is the meaning of the null value. A null is often ambiguous. It could mean the column value is not appropriate or the column value is not decided. I mean, it's empty, it's blank. Okay? Right, next, functional dependency. What is functional dependency? Okay, so a relationship between attributes in which one attribute determines the value of another attribute. Let's say we have a table. Okay, I won't be drawing the table. Okay, just the attribute. Okay, let's say this table name student. So student has student ID. Okay, and student has name. Okay, and student has age. Okay, and probably hometown. Okay, so by having, okay, let's say id is the primary key, means that the key. So by having the id, student id, by having id, student id, you can know student's name. By having student id, you can know the age of the student. By having the student id, you can know the hometown for the student. This is what we call functional dependency. The attributes, the normal attributes, are depending on the key attributes. This is key attribute. Primary key means it is the key attribute. It is still an attribute, but it is a key attribute. Okay. All right. Attribute. Attributes that we use as the starting point on the left side of the equation is called a determinant. So determinant means that the price, yeah, the quantity is the determinant for the box price, yeah. Okay, so by definition, a candidate key of a relation will functionally determine all other attributes. Like I said just now, yeah, student, right? Table name student. You have few attributes. Okay, so name, age, hometown. These are all normal attributes. Okay, ID is the key attribute because all of these are attributes. So it says that um, a primary key of a relation will functionally determine all of other attributes. So by having ID, we can know the student's name. By having ID, we can know the age of the student. By having ID, we can know the hometown of the students. Okay, right? So for example, by having employee ID, we can know the employee last name. We can also know the employee phone. Means that by having employee ID can determine employee last name. Employee ID can determine employee phone. Project ID can determine the project name. Project ID can determine the start date. Alright, so that's about all for chapter 2. We will continue to to topic 3, which is still relational database concept, but a bit extended on in terms of the ERD. Okay, stay tuned. Thank you very much.